My name is Ron Rogers. I'm the director of Kenosha County's Division of Children and Family Services, and today we're inviting you to take a journey with us into the child welfare system, or otherwise known as the Child Protective Service System. In Wisconsin, the role of investigating child abuse and neglect falls on county government and local law enforcement, and we each have our own roles. Kenosha is a unique system in that we have many key stakeholders in this process, Children's Hospital of Wisconsin, other community services that work with kids and families. But my purpose right now is just to give you a very brief overview of the child welfare system. You're going to actually hear from people that work in the system today. Social workers, case managers that actually investigate child abuse and neglect, that work with families where abuse and neglect has occurred, and successfully reunify families safely with the help of many of the service providers in our local community. In your packet, you have a folder, and I'm not going to read everything in the folder. There's a large document in it that gives a lot of basic statistical information about abuse and neglect in Wisconsin, but I'd like you to just look briefly at a card in your folder. It looks like this. It says, Kenosha County, some innovative ways we're working to improve stability and safety for children. And just to give you an idea of how many kids we work with and what is the scope of child welfare in Kenosha County. First, our focus is the safety of children, and then finding permanent safe homes for children if they have become victims of abuse and neglect. And while we're working with children and families to improve their well-being, so you may hear terms today of safety, permanence, and well-being. Right now, when children are unsafe and they have been abused or neglected, one of the most common ways that we initially protect children is placing them in foster care. And what you can see in this card is, in 2014, 248 children entered foster care in Kenosha County. There were a total of 525 children in care for all or part of a year last year in Kenosha County. In perspective, there's about 40,000 children in Kenosha County today that live here, growing up here. So it is a small number, but it's a serious number because no one wants to see a child abused or neglected. Our focus is clearly physical abuse of children, physical neglect of children, sexual abuse of children. There are other kinds of abuse. There is things called emotional abuse. But in reality, it's those three primary categories that is our primary focus and where we see most of the need. There are 72 counties in the state of Wisconsin. We are the 8th busiest in this work. We are in the top 10, and that is just a fact. That is, you can figure out why. We have a lot of lower income families here, people that are struggling. But poverty does not mean that people neglect their children. Neglect is clearly defined in Wisconsin statutes. So the other part that you're going to learn today is that the system gets its authority from the Wisconsin statutes, Chapter 48 of the Children's Code, and our work with families where abuse and neglect has occurred is governed by the court process, and Judge Roselle will be talking about that. In 2014, we investigated 753 different reports of child abuse and neglect. That means every month over 60 reports come into Kenosha County. And what does that mean for our work? I have a total of 11 social workers, case managers that work in our Child Protective Services unit that do that investigative work. 9 of which are in the field every day of the week, investigating child abuse and neglect. The other 2 are taking phone calls, receiving reports of abuse and neglect. We have 10 social workers that work with families where abuse and neglect has occurred. And as a general rule, we have about 180 families open any day of the week in some part of the process. Some of the families have just come into the system. Other families, we've been working hard with them for a year. Other families, we're returning their children to them, and we're still supervising the children when they return home. Every year, of those 753 investigations that we might do, and that's an average number for us in a year. Sometimes it gets as high as 800 in a year. about 90 to 100 of those families will need court intervention. That is, we've determined that the children are unsafe, that abuse or neglect occurred, and we need to provide services for those families so that that abuse and neglect doesn't occur again. On the card you received, what the statistic that most people don't realize is that we have a lot of children return safely home. So you see on the card, in last year, 169 children returned home to a birth parent. That is, those parents worked on the issues that caused their home to be abusive or neglectful. Those parents worked on anger control issues. They learned better parenting skills. They coped with alcohol or drug abuse and are in full recovery. We don't return children unless we feel it is a permanent safe home for those children. But not every family makes those changes. Not every parent is able to. So on the other side of the card, under the heart, you'll see that the other thing that we do is our goal is to find a permanent safe home for children, and the clock is ticking on permanency. So if parents aren't making sufficient progress over a period of time, we have to find an alternative, a different place for those kids to grow up. And we use adoption or guardianship to achieve those ends. So last year, 45 children found safe permanent homes through adoption or guardianship. And then the one number in green is sort of probably the sadder number, is every year we're not able to find a safe permanent home for some kids. And those kids grow up in foster care and what they call age out of care. They turn 18 while they're foster parents, while they're living with a foster parent. We do the best we can to launch them into adulthood, but I need to tell you right now the best way for kids to get launched into adulthood is with a family, a permanent, safe family. As far as all these children coming into care, another statistic you need to know is that we don't have anywhere near enough foster parents to do this work. We have today 85 foster parents that are licensed by Kenosha County. A county our size, with how much work we have in this area, we really should have about 120 foster parents licensed. So that's how far short we are. Every year when foster parents who adopt children, after their home becomes full, at some point in time they leave the foster care system. And that's why every year we always need some new parents to step up and decide that they want to be foster parents. So I'm going to keep my remarks short. The other material in the folder is something you can look at as the day progresses. If you're into statistics, we have a child welfare report that is at the registration table. You can feel free to take one if you'd like to get more statistics about Kenosha County. But right now I'd like to turn it over to the staff who do all the hard work in this, and I'd like to turn it over to our first speaker, Lisa Retzloff.